This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, good morning, all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. So before starting today's session, I just wanted to know, do you guys have any doubt with the previous sessions or the previous topics? If you have any doubts, then maybe we can just sort it out and clear it out before starting today's topic.
Yes, I have one. Actually, today I was going through the external tool and I was checking for the Visual Studio. So I was not getting means the I clicked on external tools, but whenever I clicked, it was directing a page like Microsoft page, but I didn't get means how I can download that DAX Studio. That I'm not getting the option.
Okay, okay. So you were trying on the external tool options from the Power BI desktop for to be clear, and you were trying out the different tools which is available, and you
Yeah.
wanted the DAX Studio, the Power BI report builder, Excel connector, all the stuff, right?
Right. Yeah, actually
Yes.
I was going through the YouTube video also there. Maybe there they were using some different version. So there I can see they are having different kind of tools. But for me, when I clicked on the external tools, it was just redirecting to Microsoft page where
Microsoft Page.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So for that, before using it is what you see on their desktop or on their YouTube, it's not defaultly available, Arpita. It is external tools. That means we have to first install that set of files, or we have to install those .exe files in our system. Then once after installation, and we also have to do some options and settings in our Power BI desktop version. So that I'll be coming, as I said, once we finish the Power Query concepts, right, we will be coming back to the Power BI desktop again, and we will explore all the options from here. So I'll
Oh,
be teaching you there at that time, like how do we install, like maybe not everything we can install, but at least we'll install a DAX Studio, very
mm,
important for the optimization of reports, and we'll install a Excel connector, and maybe we can install a tabular editor for an SSA's connections, and we can check on it how it is gonna work. Okay. So
okay.
yes, uh,
Sure.
yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Hope you guys have installed Ssms and SQL Server and Power BI Desktop, and also imported the .bak file, backup file, adventurous work. So let's start with today's session. Sandeep, I hope you have already installed.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, great. So let's start today's session. Let me share my screen. So today we will be connecting the Power BI into SQL Server. So let's start getting the data, and let's see what are the different options do we have, and what are the kind of types we have, and let's start with that. So I've just opened the Power BI desktop now. So now we have to connect to the data. So connecting data, we can connect that in two ways. Here you can see the shortcuts of the shortcuts of the data connectors, which is available in the home ribbon. Okay. So you can see if it is your sources Excel workbook, you can just click on Excel workbook. If it is SQL Server, you can just click on SQL Server. If it is a data hub, you can just decide which is the data, which kind of data hub it is, and you can just click on it. And or there is an other options. The other option is it is get data from another source from the canvas itself. You can click on it. Okay. Or the default options, like which usually for we follow, is click on get data, the triangle, I mean the arrow mark, downwards arrow mark, click on the downwards arrow mark, you'll find the common data sources. So click on more. So once you click on more, the data source connectivity connectors dialog box pops up. Okay. So it takes some time, just a few seconds. It takes some time. So once you click on it, it will load it and give you the different types of data connectors. Okay, so now you can see you have the get data dialog box where you have a n number of data connectors. Okay, so now you will be using it. So first our connection is SQL Server, right? So SQL Server, you can also click on all and you can just scroll down and select the data connectors. Or SQL Server means it is a database. You can just click on the database and you can use the SQL Server database. Suppose if you doesn't know which category it belongs, you can just type in the search bar. You can just type in SQL Server, okay, and you'll get the SQL Server connectors. So our database is SQL Server database. So click on SQL Server database and click connect. Okay, so once you click on connect, a dialog box appears again from the SQL Server database. So if you see here, we have the a pop-up box or a text box where we have to input our server name or we have to input our details. Okay, so if you see, it is a server is a must. So it is not like optional. If you see the database, for database they have given optional. We may enter the database name or not required, but server name is must. Okay, so we have to enter the server name. How do we enter the server name? Where do we get the server name? Okay, so I will show you where do we get the server name from Ssms. Okay, so click on Ssms, where we installed the .bak file yesterday and where we installed the Ssms in last sessions. Okay, okay. So once I open Ssms, my window pops up saying that connect to SQL Server. So here it is already given this is my server name. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just copy the server name. I'll come back to my Power BI. I'll just paste it. Okay, once I paste it, okay, if I just give okay, we will come back to this options. The today topic is about these options. Okay, but I'll just come back. We'll come back. I'll be just showing you how the server will be connecting. So this is my server name. So once I give okay, a navigators pops up. So this is navigator dialog box where it allows us to select the databases or it allows us to select the tables for our reporting purpose. Okay, so you can see I entered my I entered my server name and then I entered my credentials. Now you can see here I have a dim data, factorial data tables. I have the dimensional data tables available from my server name and my database name. Okay, so here I have only one database as of now on my server. That is why one is showing. Suppose we have n number of bases, it will show be one below the other, and we can click on this expand the database name, and we can select the tables whichever we wanted. Okay, and this is one way. Suppose this is how usually you will follow, like in clients or in real time example. What happens, the clients or the users who is connecting to the databases, right? They will give us a client, they will give us all the server name details, and if port numbers is required, they'll give the port numbers, and they'll give the database details also, and usually they'll give the service account in the sense it will not be our accounts. We will not be using accounts with our associated names, but instead there will be a service accounts where it is a kind of a common account used for only reporting purpose or used only for the SQL purpose. They will give a service account and username and password, so we will be accessing through that. Okay, so that is the this one. So if we go back to the suppose if you forget your if your database is installed on your local system, this case is only on your local systems. Okay, not on the client projects or not on the real time business, it will not happen. Okay, what I'm saying is, suppose on your local system you have installed Ssms and SQL Server, you would have forgot your SQL Server name, or yeah, I mean the server name. You don't know what is the server name. So one try what you can do is just click on the get data, that is SQL Server again. So what you can do is you can just enter a dot. Okay, dot indicates that it is my local system. Please take my local system's server name by default or directly. fetch my data server name, my local system server name directly. So that is what dot indicates. Okay, now you can see I did not enter or copy paste any of my server name. I just clicked on dot and I give okay. Okay, so you can see before we had the server name here popping up under the navigator pop-up box, correct? So we had that BDC, what we had there, we had the server name. But now if you see, it says that local SQL database. So that dot indicated that this is my server local system. Please take my local system SQL server name. So it has went and searched in the directory what is my local system server, and it is checked for the databases available under my local system server name, and it is popped up with this different server names. And I could get the different tables whatever was under my database, and the factorial tables, dimensional tables, and I can use it. Any doubts with this, or is it clear?
Yeah, it is clear.
Okay. Great. So now let's start with the next one. So yes, so we started with the navigator, everything. Okay. Before that, I'll just cancel because we have a concept which I told it's an important concept which we have to know. Okay. So let me click on SQL Server again. Okay. Okay, so yes, we have the server. Now I'll just click on the dot server. Now we have the data connectivity modes. What is data connectivity mode? Okay, so if you see here, you might ask what is import, what is direct query, right? What is import, what is direct query? Or you would have heard this concept before also, like many, if you just type Power BI interview questions, you would find this option, you would find this question very important, or also very like frequently you would be finding this question. What is import mode, or what is the difference between import and direct query mode? Okay, so this is a very important concept, and your reports, the way you start developing the reports or building the reports depends on this connectivity modes. So you will be choosing, you have to choose wisely which connectivity mode helps the user, or which connectivity mode helps my report, in order to, and also the performance of the report depends on the connectivity modes. Okay, so let's start. What is import, what is direct query? Okay, so yes, before that, let me start with what are the in Power BI, not just on for the SQL Server database. In Power BI, generally, how many types of connectivity modes is there? Okay, I'll just start. You can also make a note of it. Okay, so we have totally 4 different types of connectivity modes. Okay, 4 different types of connectivity modes in Power BI. Okay, or it is also called as storage modes. So you might get a question in interview asking what are the different type of connectivity modes available in Power BI. Also, what are the different type of storage modes available in Power BI? And few people get confused. So I have I have conducted like more than for Power BI especially, I've conducted like 100 plus interviews. Okay, I've asked like whenever I ask the questions, the experienced persons also get confused with this question. So please make sure that connectivity modes and not the connectivity sources. Okay, so experienced people also get confused about it. If I ask what are the different types of connectivity modes we have, they start generally saying we have SQL Server, we have Excel, we have AWS, we have Azure services. No, that is not the question. That is data sources. What are the different types of data sources or data connectors we have in Power BI? Then please go ahead and answer that question. Okay. But what are the different types of connectivity modes or storage modes available in Power BI? Then we have 4 different types of connectivity modes or storage modes in Power BI. Okay. So this is the topic which we are going to discuss. So under this, First one, we have import mode, which we saw just now while connecting to the SQL Server. First one is import mode. Okay. Second one is direct query. Okay. Third one, we have a live connection. Then fourth one, we have something called composite model, or it's called mixed model, or it's called complex model. Okay, clear with the types? Any questions on this? Okay, so let's move forward. So for these are the 4 different types of connectivity modes or storage modes available in Power BI. First one is import mode, second one is direct query, third is live connection, fourth is composite model, mixed model, or complex model. It can be called in any ways. Okay, so coming back to the import mode. So what is import mode? Okay, what is import mode, and why is it called import mode, and what is it does? Okay, how it reacts compared to the other modes, how it reacts in the Power BI. So let's see that. Okay, so coming back to the import mode. Okay, import mode, what does it any idea on just listening to the name? Any idea what does it do? Import, what does it mean? Import means generally, just think about generally, you would have heard about the concept called import or export. What does it mean?
Yeah, like importing the data with like we import an Excel or import some file. So like that, importing data
Yes, so importing data, correct, importing data, but to where are we importing the data?
in the Power Query.
Yeah, not only a Power Query, to the Power BI desktop or to the Power BI file. Okay, so we are importing in this mode, right? We will, there are it will copy, it's just not, so for example, let me open one Excel and show you a small example. Okay, how does it import? So, okay, so consider we have a few columns. So let's take an example with a student example. Okay, so we have a student ID here, then we have a student name, then we have the gender, then we have class, then we might have subjects. Okay, so let's take these many columns. So student ID, let it be 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, and student name E B C D E. Okay, gender female and male, and class would be like let's consider fifth. Okay, just let me just put 5 6 5 6 6 4. Okay, and subjects maybe like English, math, then science, social, and social. Okay, so we have, this is a common data, just a common table. Just consider this is a sample table we have. So here, if you see how many columns we have as of now, what are the different types of what are the columns we have, total number of columns we have in the sample data?
Oh,
Sorry, 4?
Five.
sorry, five.
5, yes. So we have these are the columns. Okay, these are the columns. So we have 1 2 3 4 5. So we have 5 columns. Okay, let me just highlight it. So we have 5 columns and rows. How many rows we have? Rows is nothing but a data rows.
Five.
Okay, Yeah, so we have 5 data rows, and okay, let me just delete one. So as of now, we have only 4. So we have 5 columns and we have 4 rows, correct? So let me make a note of it. So we have columns, we have 5, and data rows or rows, we have 4. Okay. So now how Power BI, how the data will get exported in Power BI. Okay. When we import it, right? Import in the sense, what is import? Import in the sense, what will happen? Like we are importing the data to Power BI. That means we are getting the data, whatever is there in the file. It might be Excel file, or it might be the SQL server, or from the tables which we selected, or it might be any other database server like Oracle or Analysis server, or it could be Azure server. Okay, we are getting the data or importing the data from the source along with a metadata and along with the table data. Okay, what is metadata and table data? Metadata means, okay, it's just a column definitions or the definition of the table. It doesn't contains the row data or data rows. Okay, it's just the column definitions. So in our case, what you're seeing metadata is which would be the metadata? The column names, correct? So these column names, this is the definition of this table. This column names are the definition of this table. It says that we have student ID, student name, gender, class, and subjects. So this is the column definitions, and this is called metadata. Okay, so in our case, this is column definitions. It's not the rows or the data rows, it's just the column definitions. That is called metadata. Table data. Table data means it's an entire table. Okay, it's just not the data rows or the just not the column definitions, it's the entire table. Okay, it's the entire table. So in import mode, what happens when we are importing the data, right? When we are importing the data from Power BI desktop, it's just not import the only the rows, or it's just not import only the column definitions or the table definition. It imports the entire data along with metadata. Okay, that is what import data does. So I'll just mention that in the import mode, this one, in this model. Okay, in this mode, it will copy the entire table data or rows. Okay, data or rows into the Power BI desktop, just not Power Query, Power BI desktop. Okay, Power BI desktop. So here there is a one question arises. Usually how they ask is, where does this data get stored in the tricky questions. So usually even we shoot the questions in this way. Okay, you say that it may be they'll just see Google it, or say that okay, import means we import the data into Power BI desktop. The entire data will go. The entire data we will take it, we will store it. They say in that way, but where does the data get stored actually? When we import the data to the Power BI desktop, where the imported data, right, where it gets stored? Any idea? It might be a wrong answers, no problem. It's not necessary that your answer should be accurate, but yeah, any idea where might the data gets stored when you imported data to a Power BI desktop, where it might get stored?
SQL Server.
A SQL server. Okay, Arpita, you have any answer?
Is there any storage within Power BI? I'm not sure.
Okay, so yes, I'll come back. It's not on SQL Server, and we don't have anything related to storage. Okay, but we have a something called engine, which is our next topic in today's session itself. We will come back to it. But the import means, yes, the answer is very clear. It will store the data only on the, it is on dependent on our local system. Okay, it depends on our local system, and the processing of the files also depends on our RAM. And also along with that, the data gets stored in the Power BI desktop file itself. Okay, we will the PBIX, the .pbx extension what we saw, the data gets stored in that file. So that is why it is called an imported file. Okay, so when we choose an import method, the data when we the data gets the entire table along with the table definition and metadata, it will get imported into our Power BI desktop file. So you would see when you see the Power BI desktop, sometimes you can see just let us connect and see for one of the SQL Server, and let us see one of the I'll just see whether I have any of the example to show you on the Power BI desktops. Um, Okay, you can just take here. I have two files. One is Pallavi and one is sample. Okay, if you see here, it is 42 KB and it is 10 KB the size. You can see the difference, right? Both is sorry, one is 39 KB and one is 42 KB. You can see both is Microsoft Power BI desktop files, okay, which is a PBX file, and you can see the difference is 39 KB and 42 KB. Why it is different? Because we have imported the data, and the data, right, and whatever the data you are seeing is different. It would be different. Okay, the files would be different, the data what we have imported would be different, and it depends completely on the data size. So that whatever the data is imported to the file, it the size depends here. The size keeps on increasing or the size keeps on decreasing based on the modulation or transformation or the data we import into the Power BI file. Any doubts with that or clear? I'll just show you the one more. I'm just trying to get into another. Yeah, you can see each table. Here we have an expand nested table, which is a 13 KB. And I have one more Ulti REST Pro REST API, which I have trying out. So it is 31 KB. Okay. And it is not necessary. It will just be in KBs. It will also be in MBs. It will also be sometimes go to almost GB. Okay. So you can see this is one of the performance report where we have almost 1861 KB, okay, which comes around again an MB file. So you can, this is again 1502. Okay, so similarly we have the data depends or the data size, the data file size depends on the data which we have imported. Okay, so yes, any questions with that?
Yeah, so Power BI, so whatever we are importing the data, so it completely depends on it completely stores within the file. So Power BI itself doesn't have any storage or anything, right? That is what you said.
Yes, no storage. It will store in the PBX file itself only for the import mode. Okay, but for direct query and live connection and composite model, it is different, where we will
Mhm.
come back and see how the data gets stored. But if the question asks in import mode, where does the data get stored? You have to say it is on the Power PBX file itself. The data gets stored on the PBX file itself, and the data size depends on the data source which we are connecting.
So in that case, what if the file size is means the data what we are importing is huge? In that case, will it be able to store that data into that file?
Yes,
Does it
yes.
have
I'll
any
come.
kind of
Yes,
okay?
I'll come into that topics where
Okay.
we have its own limitations and how does it is working. Okay. Yes, I'll come into that topic. Okay. So this is import mode. Clear about import mode, where how do we import? What does import mode means? Like how do we get the data and where does the data get stored? You are clear now, correct?
Yeah, just one question. Can you go back to the Excel where you prepared the table? Yeah.
Yes,
So you were saying like this metadata means column definition and table data entire table. So
entire table.
uh,
Yes.
for import mode, so what we are doing, we are just copying the entire table, right? Entire table we are copying.
It will defaultly, if you select import mode, defaultly it will copy entire table. Okay, so let's take an example. I'll just copy this into one of the sheet. Okay, Let me name that sheet and let me store there. We'll see how does it take. Okay, so I have here, so this is, let me just name it as sample. Okay, and save this workbook. Okay, so now let me go to the Power BI desktop, click on Excel workbook. So we have to go to the click on sample, open file as a news. Let me just close. Okay, so I got the table. I'm just selecting. You can see that I have it along with student ID. I have student name, gender, class, subject. Okay, and along with that, the entire table is I can see here. When I click on load, okay, we can see. Yeah, I'll show you like how the data got loaded when we click on import mode, and I'll show you how the data gets loaded when we choose the direct query. Okay, yeah. So if you see here, we have the class, gender, student ID, student name, subjects. We have all the different columns where we saw. And if I come back to the data pane, right? If I come back to the data pane and if I click on the sample, that is the table name, I can see the data, right? I can see my data. And if I just over on it, it shows that storage mode is import and name is sample. Data refreshed is happened at 2022 8:45. That is the time which we got imported the data. Okay, so you can see the data when you're, that means the entire table is being imported, and you can see the table, you can see the data rows as well. Okay, so this is import mode. Clear with this?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So next, coming to the direct query. Okay, what happens when we are connecting to the direct query? Direct query mode, when we take this Excel sample, right, we will not be seeing the data. Okay, it will not store the entire data table as we did in import mode. That entire table data will not be stored in the direct query connection mode. So that means, where does the data get stored then? The data gets stored at the source itself. Okay, the data gets stored at the source itself. So Sandeep said SQL Server. It might be SQL Server. Yes, SQL Server. In this case, when we are taking a SQL Server as a source, and when we are choosing the direct query, the data will be stored at the SQL Server itself. It will not store the entire data on the PBX file. But instead, what it will do is it will store the metadata or the column definitions or the table definitions of the data. Okay, and whenever we wanted, or whenever we put the query request, or whenever we hit the refresh request, how does it happen? It will go back to the data source, irrespective of any data source. The data source might be SQL Server, or it might be Oracle, or it might be Azure Analysis Service, or Azure Services, Azure SQL Database, AWS, or Redshift. Okay, irrespective of any database, what it will do, it will go back to the data source directly. Okay, it will get through our table definitions and meta definitions. It will get the data, it will do the refresh and then comes back. Okay, it will not store the data. So that is why if you see any of the will see the file size. Okay, so when you save the direct query file and when you save the import mode file, there will be a huge difference of the file size if you see the pbx file. So direct query files will never cross more than kbs, or it hardly takes 1 MB. That's all, 1 MB or within 10 MB. More than that, direct query files will not have the data stored there, because the data is not at all storing there. Only the metadata will be stored. Other than that, all the data will be completely residing on their source itself. So whenever the refresh it happens, it has to go back, hit the data source, and then come back and do the refresh. Clear with this? So for example, let's take one example. Okay, what I'll do, I'll delete this. And also one more thing, for Excel workbooks or any of the Excel data sources, we will not have this option. It will, you would have observed that when I click on Excel workbook, it will not ask the answer like that, the options like whether you want import mode or direct mode, because this is a from which we are connecting from the our local desktop, right? So our local desktop cannot be a live. It will be always an import mode. Only for the data sources or for the SharePoint folders or for the analysis services, you will have these options. Okay, so yes, let's connect to the SQL Server now. Okay, I'm connecting to the SQL Server. Let us choose direct query. Okay, let us choose direct query. I'll not import all the tables. Let me import just one table to show you. Okay, I'll just import dim date, which is a little less when we try to, I mean, in compared to other tables, it will take time to load. So dim date will take less time to load. So that's why I'll choose dim date. Let me load it. Okay. Okay. Now you can see I have a dim date here. If I just over it on it, it says my storage mode is direct query. Okay, but yeah, it says that my storage mode is direct query. I have the columns which has been imported. But if I go to, you can see there is some changes happen. If you see here towards my left side, we used to have three panes, correct? One used to be reporting model, one used to be data model, and next would be I mean data pane, and third would be the model pane. But if you see now, we have only two, right? Did you notice this towards my left
Yeah.
side? Yeah.
Yeah.
So why it happened is, as I said, the direct query will choose only the metadata and the entire data will not be loaded into the PBX files. Okay, it will go back to the data source again. So the data, what does data pane used to give us? We used to see what kind of data we have, and we used to look into the tables, and we used to look into the how, what kind of different types of structure it has, whether what kind of data it has, we used to see in the data pane. But in dim date we cannot see, has because we have connected, we have choose the storage mode as direct query, and direct query will not allow us or to see the data, because the data is not imported in the in the pbx file. The data is storing still in the sql server, but here it only the through the metadata or table definitions we are building the tables. And when we wanted to refresh the data, or when we wanted to see the data, each time the refresh, when we click on the this is direct query, it's a live. Okay, direct query is nothing but a kind of live. So whenever we drag and drop data, or whenever we do the refresh, it goes back to the source, it hits the source database, and it's get refreshed, and then come back and show us the results. Okay, so you understood the difference now?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in that case, for direct query, we will not be able to alter any column, add any column from Power BI desktop, right?
You can add the columns. Okay, but there is its own limitation again. So you can add the column, I'm not saying you cannot add the column. You can create a columns, you can create a measures, but you cannot create there is something called creating a calculated tables. Have you heard of it?
Calculated, yeah,
Yeah.
calculated column.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so not column, tables, calculated
Okay.
table or compute tables, so that you cannot add it. So once you start creating, it will turn into the, there is a third model which we discussed, that is composite model. It will completely change into composite model. Okay, so that we will explain in the power query options when we come in the next classes, right? We will look into it. Okay,
Okay.
so this is the difference. You could clearly see how is like what is the difference, what happened when we import the direct query, and what happened into the live query. Okay, sorry, the import query. Okay, now suppose when you would not be knowing so in real, when you go when you are onboarded to projects, right, in real time scenario. So when during the first initial days, during the KT days and all, what will happen is like, and they'll just see, this is these are the reports, you just go through, download it from the workspaces, you go through, understand from yourself all those stuff. So for each and every questions, for each and every things, you will not be you would it is not fair that you will be asking someone who gives the KT, like whether it is a live connection or which data. You can ask the data source, or you can ask the this one, no problem. But it's our duty also, being a Power BI developers, we will also be, it's our duty to just download it and go and explore it. Okay, at that time you will have this question, whether in this file, so at that time the report everything would be built, and you will be seeing the report everything. But what you'll be seeing is like, you might get this confusions, which data source I am using, what are the which data storage mode am I using. Okay, how do you identify which data source storage you are using? Just as soon as the file is open, how do you identify whether it is which data storage mode is it using, or connectivity mode it is using, or what is my data source. Okay, so if you see towards the right corner, okay, right bottom corner, you have storage mode. Okay, this says storage mode is direct query. Okay, it says that it is my storage mode is direct query. That means the report is using the direct connectivity mode. Okay, so this you can see. Also you can over on the table. Okay, it will give you what is the storage mode it is using. Okay, clear. And for import mode, it will not say that the storage mode import. There will be nothing in the below. It will be completely blank for the import mode. Okay, only for the, if it is a direct query, or if it is a live connection, or if it is a composite model or a mixed model, then it will show you this notification or this message below right bottom. Okay, but if it is an import mode, it will be completely blank. Okay, you can just import it one of the excel file, and you can notice the change. Okay, so that is one thing. Second thing, you cannot convert import mode to any of the live connection or to any of the direct query connection. Okay, you cannot change or you cannot switch, but you can switch from direct query to import. Okay, you can switch from direct query to import. Suppose what in which cases it might happen. I'll just give you a real time one of the example. So you will be connecting to SQL Server databases, and you will have the tables imported. Sorry, the tables get in connect into the tables through direct query to the Power BI report, and you'll be start working on the reports. So once you start working on the reports and you build visualizations, you write DAX, you write the Power Query functions, all those stuff, and you can see that data refresh, since the data is not storing on the PBX file, right? The data refresh is too slow. It will take, because it is every time we click refresh or every time we bring out any visuals, right? It goes back to the data source, then it the data source get refresh done and then come back to the Power BI. Okay, that is how the refresh mechanism works for the direct query. So it is too slow and the performance is causing because of this refresh thing. And when we publish also, the performance is for one visual to load or one visual to get refreshed on the browser also, it's taking more than 3 minutes, more than 4 minutes. Okay, so at that time usually what they do is they'll consider, okay, anyway we have the schedule refresh options, let's go for that method. Let's change, instead of direct query, let's change it into import mode. So at that time we have this option. You can see in the bracket we have click to change, correct? So when it is a direct query mode, you have an option to convert it into import mode. So if I click on this click to change, it says that switch all tables to import. So once, but be sure, make sure once you click on this option switch, that is switched into import mode, right? You can never come back to direct query again. Okay, from import mode, as I said, you can never come back to the direct query again. Okay, but from direct query you can go back anytime to import mode, but from import mode you cannot come back to the direct query again. So please make sure that when you're doing it or when you're trying it out, you have a copy of it, the copy of the files, the copy of the PBX file as a backup, so that you can, if it does happens also, you can just open the one more file which you had the copy, and you can start working on it. Okay, clear? Any questions in this?
Yeah, I have one question. So as you said, like during refresh, it might take longer for direct query mode, and that time, that point of time, we can consider to change it to import mode. So if it is like that, if everyone knows that the refresh will take time and ultimately they will change it to import mode, then why
Why we
we
have to go
don't?
to direct query?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Even though, see, refresh is the one of the limitations, or one of the limitation from the direct query. I agree. Okay, but there is its own even import mode has its own limitations. So because of that limitation, we would be switching into the direct query. We will be switching into the live connection also. So that is the next example where we will be talking about why we have a difference between import versus direct query versus live, where I'll be talking about when do we go for import, when do we go for live, when we do go for direct query. Clear? I'll be talking about it. So let's cover that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah, but it's a good question, Arpita. Yeah, each and everyone will have this question, and even in during interviews, they will ask these questions. But it is dependent on the import mode of limitations. We have import mode limitations, so because of that, we have like what these questions will arises. So we will be talking about it. Let me finish off this composite model, all four different types of model, and then let's go for the difference, and let's go why it is important and when should we consider each model. Okay, that topic is next, so let's cover in that way. Okay, so this is import mode, and this option you're clear. Okay, so next is coming to the, we finished the import mode and direct query. Direct query, I'll just make a note for your reference. It will copy only the metadata. Okay, that is column names or the definitions. Okay, so this is import mode done, direct query mode done. So next one is live connection. Before coming to live connection, let me go to composite model and show you, because we already have one of the example there, so I didn't want to do it, repeat it again. So what is composite model? Okay, any composite model or mixed model or complex model, any idea you guys are getting that what could be that? Any rough answer is also fine. I mean, what might it give? Composite mode or mixed model? By naming, by just seeing the word mixed model or composite model, what does it gives? Any idea
Combination
on
of
this?
both import and the
Yes,
direct query.
exactly. So
Okay.
composite model or a mixed mode is nothing but a combination of both import and direct. Okay. So composite model is nothing but a combination of both import and direct query. So in this case, how does it work? Okay, so I have already a one direct query. Okay, let me import the database to here itself. Okay, and I'll just import an Excel workbook. So let's take sample file itself, which we created. Okay. So we have two of the data sources which is imported. So one is imported and one is direct query. So if you see dim date, it is storage mode is direct query. When you see the sample, it is import. You can see the storage mode is import and it shows the data refresh. Why it doesn't show data refresh for dim date? Any idea? See, when I click over on sample, it shows that sample is this one, storage mode is import and data refreshed at 13th at 9 a.m. But when I over on dim date, why it is not showing me store refresh date or refresh timings? Okay, because sample is imported and it is storing on the file, right? It is not live. The data is not live in the import mode. So when we want it, it is like it is live just at the time of where when it is imported, but it is not live. When we wanted to keep the data or when we see the live data, we have to hit the refresh button or we have to click on this refresh data. Okay, but dim data, if you see, it's not showing me any of the data timings when it is live. And also I don't have option. If I right click on the dim data table, that is dim date table, I don't have this refresh option. You could see you notice this, right? So if I click on sample and right click, I have an option called refresh data. Okay, but if I click on dim date and if I try to right click, I don't have this called refresh option, because dim date is a direct query. The storage connectivity mode used is a direct query. Direct query is nothing but it's a live. Already it's a live data. It is live. It is always available. The data is always up to date. Okay, so that is why the refresh data or the refresh option when it is refreshed, that is not required in the dim date. Okay, clear? But in sample, the data is not live. It is imported. We might been imported. See, suppose if I don't refresh the sample file, okay, tomorrow if I open this file under sample, it will show me that data is refreshed yesterday. So tomorrow will be 14th, but my data refresh will be showing me date of 13th 9 a.m. only. Okay, so the data sample, the import mode is not live. I mean, the data is not live and it's not up to date, but dim date will always be live. The data will always be live. Okay, so that is one thing you can notice here. And the second, what we were talking about is storage model, which is a combination of both import and the direct query. Okay, you can see the combination got changed. Before it was only direct query, but now if you see the storage mode, it got as a mixed mode. okay, or the composite mode. You can see it got changed into mixed mode and composite mode, and we don't have any option to change it or to completely entire import or entire direct query. We do not have that option. So in this file, as of now, we have one data source as a live connection, that is a direct query connection, and one as a import mode connectivity. Okay, and also you could notice that towards my left side, before, when we had only the direct query, we had only the reporting view and we have the model view. But now this data view came up. Why? Because we have imported the sample file, right? So because of that, we got the data view. But you must be noticing that that means we will you be able to see the data for direct query? No, you cannot see. So this is on sample, okay, this is which is import one. So if I click on that, the entire table data is shown here, correct? But if I click on the dim data, see, you can notice that this table uses direct query and cannot be shown. Okay, clear on this?
Two things. I have two questions. First is, when we are working for any report generation, in that case, if we use one table from direct query and one table as import mode, so there will be a change in the refresh status also. So will not be a problem that one table will be refreshed automatically but other table will not be refreshed automatically?
Yes,
Does it
Arpita.
work like that?
Yeah. There will be I mean, there will be differences between the direct query and the import mode when we consider composite model. To handle that situation is that the schedule refresh comes into picture. Okay, and there would be a reason, the reason which we will be discussing in the next class. As I said, our next topic would be like when and where we have to use this kind of models, right? So
Okay.
where exactly we will be using composite model, on which scenario? I'll give you an example. Okay, so at that time, it's not necessary that always my Excel files or the imported files has to be refreshed every day or the data should be live. If it is that case, if it always should be live, then they would have gone chosen for the live connectivity mode or direct query itself. Okay,
Mhm.
but there is some
Okay.
reason there why they imported like few files, why they imported as a connectivity mode, and why they have choose few of the data sources as the direct query, because there would be a refresh frequency also. Okay, there are such kind of business or that such kind of projects going on, and such kind of requirement is going on. So which we will be seeing in the next topic, like when do we choose and what is the real time scenario with that. I'll come up with that example for you, like I'll be explaining. So that
Okay.
is how that is a reason, there is a reason behind that. Otherwise blindly they won't just import just mod Excel file, or they blindly they won't import the direct queries. Okay, so yeah,
Okay.
there is
And
a reason there.
one last question. One last question. So if I use one Excel as import query, and suppose I update the Excel, and actually I didn't try in this way. That's why
Hmm.
asking. So if I click on the refresh button, so whatever I have updated in the Excel will reflect into my Power BI desktop.
Yes, it will. It should. Otherwise, no use, right? Connecting into the this one, it should. Okay, I'll show you.
Okay.
Let's see
Okay.
this demo before closing. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So this is about the composite model which we were talking about. So you can see that this is a difference which we were talking. This table uses direct query and cannot be shown. Okay. So clear with this concept, this two concept. Uh,
Yeah.
No questions. Fine. Okay, so once this is done, let's move forward it. Let's connect. So we saw here three types of modes. So one is import mode. While we saw the demo, how does it work? Once we saw the direct query, we saw the how it just works. Then next we saw the composite model. Okay. Before tomorrow session, we will be explaining what are the like difference between import mode, when, or difference between direct query, difference between live connection, and each scenario when we will be connecting. I mean when which case scenario, one real-time business example I'll be giving you. Where do we exactly use which kind of models, and how do we choose it? And it has its own limitation for each of the models, right? How do we overcome that? So that will be our tomorrow's topic along with that. And let's finish it off live connection, which is one pending. Okay. uh, what is live connection? So live connection, okay, we have live connection. Live connection means what? By the name, what does it say? So we have live connection. By the name, what does it say?
Mm, live data.
Similar to direct query. Yes, it's of course live data. Like, it's again, the data is not imported into any of the PBX file. The data is not stored on the any of the files, and it is not dependent on the our local machine, or it's not completely not. The data is completely live, and it is stored on the data sources again. It is not on the live. But you would be asking me, if it is that case, then why would this direct query enough, right? Why would we, if it is not, what is the difference? Both is live, both is not storing data on their PBX files, then what is the difference? Okay, this live connection is used to, this direct query is used to connect to the data sources, okay, which we were checking, like which we saw also. It's connect it, which will be used to connect to the data sources. But live connection, it will connect to the models. It will not connect to the data sources, it will connect to the models. Models in the sense, it could be multi-dimensional models, or it could be tabular models. Okay, this mode is used to connect to multi-dimensional model or tabular models. Okay, which is nothing but SSAS. Okay, you could have heard this SSAS, that is SQL Server Analysis Service, and Azure Analysis Service. Okay, and also Power BI data sets. Okay, when you connect these kind of data warehouse models, okay, these are data warehouse models. When you connect this kind of data warehouse models, you will not find the option called direct query. So let's see that. Okay, so I'm clicking on get data more. Okay, let's click on analysis service. Okay, I got this SQL Server Analysis Service database now. So if I click on SQL Server Analysis database and connect, okay, you can see my options. Before, when we were connecting to the SQL Server, you saw import and direct query, correct? Import and direct query. But now when I'm connecting to the models, that is not data sources, models. So when I'm connecting to the models, I can find import and connect live. There is no option for me for the direct query. Okay, so connect live connection is nothing but it is specifically, it is also same way it works. Direct query, it is I'm like direct query, it will not store the data into the PBX file. Refresh mechanism would be like, it again, it will go back to the data sources. I'm in the model, then get the data, refresh data, and then comes back. Okay, and also the refresh frequency is live. Okay, but it will not connect to the data sources, it will connect only to the models. What is model? Model is it out of your formatted data warehouse. In a data warehouse concept, right, using your databases, using your data, see, we have this databases, correct? We have this databases, we have the different dimensions, we have different factorial tables, we have the schemas. So using this, and in this, right, we will not be having all this is like we have all kind of data here. It is not, it might be, for example, when we consider for any of the requirement or any of the project or any of the business, all this data is not required. It could be like unused data also. If, for example, there would be a row id, there would be a key id, that is not required for us to, in order to show in reports, right? We will not show any of the row id. We will be using at the back end, for example, for calculations or writing dax or writing power query, it will be there. But we will not show entire data, whatever we have under the tables or under the different types of tables and different types of factorials. All data cannot be showed, or we will not be showing under the report section. Okay, for in order to do that, we would be requiring a formatted data, or the cleaned data, or the processed data. So what we doing this, all this data, right? We will, in data warehouse, in SSAS, usually in analysis service, what they do is like they import all these tables, they connect to all these data sources. Along with that, they build the views, they write the views in order to tweak the requirement, in order to justify or satisfy the user according to the user requirement. So user requirement would be there. So according to the user requirement, they build the models in the sense, it's where the relationships happening. So how the SSAS will look is like, so when you install SSAS, you will find this modeling view, all those stuff what we are seeing here, modeling view, right? Similarly, SSAS will have this modeling view. They will also import the data like us, where we will have the import, they'll have the dimension tables, they'll have the fact tables, where they give the relationship, where they find the cardinality ratios, where they give the directions. Okay, they build the models and then save the models and publish the models to the server. So we will be connecting to those models. This again, this example, when do we connect to this model, will come up with the tomorrow, we'll see in the tomorrow session. Okay, but yeah, they will connect to the models, they will build the model and publish to the server. We will directly connect to those models and utilize into the reports. Okay, at that time, also please notice, your storage mode will be live connection. It always says live connection. Okay, and here also it will say towards your left side, you will have only the reporting model and report view and the model view. But in model view, you cannot change any of the directions, or you cannot change. See, suppose here, what happens if I just give and here, if I just try to give, it will come, you can see this windows popping up, and you can see that the directions is changing, and we can change it in the direct query also, and also in the import mode also, and also in the composite model, we can do the relationship modeling. But in live connection, we cannot see any of the modeling we cannot edit any of the modeling option. We can see from which table to which table, how it is connected, but we cannot do any of the edit operations, because this model will be built completely on the analysis service. The modeling will be done on the analysis service. We will have just a read only view for us, and we will be looking into, like, we can go through the relationship, how it is formed and how it is given, but we cannot build the we cannot change the relationship type. Okay, so that is in the live connection mode, when you're trying to connect to the any of the SSAS servers or any of the Azure analysis servers, or in only Power BI data sets models. Okay, so we'll see that example. I'll try to get any of the SSAS server live connection. If I have one, I'll try to import it and get it show you tomorrow, if it's possible. Okay, so but that is a difference. Before also, a few years back, where we used to have only this report when you're connecting to the live connection. Only this report pane was showing, and no other was showing. The data pane or the model pane was not shown. But usually, why they gave us a model pane, why they enabled a model pane for live connection, that to only read only is, right? So as the days goes, when we were writing DAX, or when we were writing when we do the when we are writing DAX also, we should know what kind of relationship is there when we are combining two tables. When we are having the two tables here, we should know the model sometimes, in order to check how is the modeling is happening, how the two tables are connected together. For us, how does, if we write this tax function, how does it react? How does the what does my output be? So this question started arising, and for each and every time that the reporting developer, right, will not be having complete access on the backend developer, that is like to the analysis service or to the SQL server. So each time they have to go and they have to ask, see, I don't know what is this model, can you please explain me what is the relationship between these two tables, or what is the how it is formed, is it a calculated table? All this questions started arising. So in order to avoid that, then many people started voting up for for that. Yesterday we saw that we have a vote up idea or submit an idea blog, right? So many people started submitting an idea and started voting, and they considered they considered this request, and they brought up this report pane for the model pane for the live connection. But it is only read only, not edit. There is no edit option for that. Okay, so that is about the live connection. You saw that why for us it was disabled for the gray. It was showing that gray because I didn't enter the server name. So I don't have the currently any of the live SSAS server name. So if we enter the SSAS server name, then my option would be turned on connect live. Okay, clear about live connection? So we
from where did you connect that? I missed that maybe.
yes. So click on get data. Okay, you can connect either in analysis service. So if you see this icon also, it clearly shows, you can see one cube kind, right? That means it is called modeling. Okay, you can see live connect or import data from a SQL Server analysis service database. It shows the description also. You can, yeah, you can just click on it. So once you click, you'll get the server name, and again you'll have the option import and connect live. For me, it is grayed out because there is no server name. Once we report the server name, it will turn out into both the options will be enabled and you can use it.
Okay. So from the analysis service, we can also use import option also?
Yes, we can use it, but it is not recommended. Definitely not recommended, but we can use it. It's there. Yeah. Before it wasn't there, like before in the sense like maybe 4 years back. Okay, but now after that they have enabled into import mode also, but it is not recommended because
we use connect
yeah,
live.
we use live connection. Yes, models are always better performing through live connection compared to import. Okay, because consider model is like when we just build one of the file or something, itself it will cost like 1 MB 2 MB if the data gets. Models, that is models in the sense we have combining multiple tables and building models out of it, then it is huge. The data source is huge, but when that data size is huge. So when you're connecting that model into the database, when you're trying to importing that model to Power BI reports, right, then it goes for a toss. I had a situation like where when I was trying to connect to the SQL Server SQL Server analysis service into the import mode, right, just one table, that is just dim employee table. Okay, when I was trying to connect to that dim employee table, it took almost 4 hours for me to load 4 hours. Yes, because the transaction would be huge. The model we are building based on the data warehouse. The data warehouse is huge again, and that is why model is specific for the business purposes. For each model will be there. For example, sales model is different. We cannot combine all the models together again. Sales model is different. Finance model is different. So I have a project in my. I have a client. My client has all kind of domains. He has sales also. He has marketing also. He has finance also. So he says, I want sales reports. At that time, we will build specifically sales model. We will not combine sales into finance because it will become huge again. And live connection also will go for a toss. So we will build a separate model. We'll consider only the tables or dimensions or fact tables related to sales and then build a model out of it. Okay. Similarly, finance, we'll consider only the finance tables. Similarly, marketing, we'll consider only the marketing tables. Similarly, HR, we'll consider only the HR data related tables and we'll build the model out of it. So again, model depends on like that. That is how the models will be built based on the user business requirement and specific to the business.
So if when you use the import connection that took 4 hours, So that time, so all the data related to marketing, finance, HR, everything was imported.
No, it was not coming everything. It was just for the sales dimension model. I mean, sales model. It's a sales queue. From there, we were just trying to get the employees table, employee transaction or employee punch in punch out information. We were just trying to get, and that took 4 hours for us.
Okay, so for import and connect live, for both the option, we can choose the specific model, right?
For Connect Live, you cannot use it, specific options, but for import, you can choose specific tables. But for Connect Live, you cannot choose specific tables because it is entire model will be loaded into our report
For connect live.
for Connect Live. But for import, as we saw that navigators dialog box pop-ups, and you can choose which table you wanted.
Okay.
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 Okay. So this is the concept, 4 types of models, which is very important, and interview questions will be based on it. I'll just put this on the chat window for your information. Just you can have the reference for your.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess I cannot share. Okay. Okay. So yeah. And before winding up, yes, we'll see the one demo which Arpita asked. We'll finish it off that. Let me open a new file. Instead of deleting, it will take time. I'll just open a new file and I'll close this one. So let's take this example only, Arpita. So where we have this sample data. So let's enter it and delete it in that way and see. Let me open that file, desktop. Okay. Yeah. So we have let's import the same file. Okay. So we have a file now. Let's import this Excel workbook. Before importing, I'll just close it. So this is okay, fine, right, Arpita, for you? Let me add a row to this and show you how it get refreshed. So I'll just close it. I'll just import it again, Excel workbook, sample file. Okay, click on the sample file and load. Okay, so now we have this table here. So let me go and just check on the sample rows. We have 4 rows. Okay, so now what we do, I'll open the sample Excel file again. Okay, let me add a row. Okay, let me add 5 female 5 and maybe in the. Okay, so I have added one row. I've also added one more row. Let us be one more row. Okay, so now I've added this row. So what we should do? We have to go and see. We have just 4. So my data source is I have added and I have updated my data source. So let's see how it gets refreshed. So I'll click on refresh button. Either I can click on this refresh button or I can just go and refresh the data here. Okay, anything is fine. But make sure, see, the thing is, when we do refresh here, right? Suppose if there is a 2-3 tables, all the tables get started refreshing. But if I click on particular table or right click on and then click on refresh data, only that table will get refreshed. Okay, that is one change. Please make sure that is done. So now it didn't happen. I got some error because my file is open. Okay, see, it's saying it is being used by another process. So please close it. Okay, I have to close it. Now let me do the refresh. So you can see it got
Yeah.
refreshed and it says 6 rows loaded. So if I go to the data pane view, I can see before it was 4 and now my refresh is added.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and also there is a few of the conditions when you're doing it. It's just not Excel file, any of the data source when you're connecting. Make sure your table, the column names has not been changed. Okay, the column names, if it is changed, you will start getting an error. And if the
Okay.
table name is being changed, you'll start getting out error. So let's see that example also. So now what I'll do, the sample is there. Okay, let's see 2 of the example. One is, instead of student ID, I'll just keep ID. Okay, I'll take out student and I'll just keep ID. Now what I'll do, uh, I'll just start refreshing. I just close the file. Now I'll do the refresh option. See, it says that column student ID of the table wasn't found. Okay, so this is the most common error or common issue you will find in real time project. Okay, this I will show you how do we do deal with coming sessions. But yes, how do we deal this? We'll go back to the query. I mean, see, what will happen is, like, in the initial stage the project will be there, and the customer will bring out the Excel files, and he would be coming with his own namings, column names, and he'll be sending out. But what will happen later, he'll go into the business, he will decide, I mean, he will discuss with business, and he will come back saying, no, business said to me, rename the files like this only, rename the column name like this only. So at that time we cannot say, no, we already used it, I will not change, or you go and come back. We cannot say that. Okay, we have to implement it. We, as far as at the ultimate, the client is the for us, the client is the at the last point, he's the end for us. Whatever he says, we have to try to do it. Okay, so at that time what we do is, like, where this is how the transform data option comes up. We will be seeing in the next coming session. So how do we change this, and how do we deal this kind of errors? But this is one of the most common issue, and one of the important interview question, because they will ask, if the column names are changed, how do you handle it? So this is the one of the scenario. Either it might be a support project, either it might be a developing project. For Power BI, this question is very important, and you will face this in your daily life when you start working on the real time projects. So this is one. And also, now suppose if I go to and change it into student ID itself, and also if I change the table name, so what kind of error we will get? So this I'll just make it into student ID itself now. Okay, and this sample is there. So instead of sample, I'll give student details. Okay, and I'll just save it. I'll close, go back and do the refresh. Okay, the key did not match any rows in the table, because why? We have imported the table called sample. But how the refresh mechanism happens, it goes, it search for the table name called, or the page name, or the tab name called sample. In our report, in our data source now in the Excel, we don't have the table name called sample at all, or the page name called, or the tab name called sample at all. So it says key did not match any rows in the table. That means that table itself it's not existing. So at this time, this is also another important error which we find commonly. So how do we fix this also? So this also comes under again a transform data or the Power Query, where we will be looking into after tomorrow's session. Okay, so we'll go and look into it, and we'll see how will we solve this kind of issues. Okay, clear? And also, as I said, the existing columns should not be changed. If it is changed, we have to go and fix it. But any number of extra columns can be added. So for example, let me just go and show you that example also. So I'll change to sample as of now. Okay. Now I have subjects. Along with that, what I'll do, I'll add a grade. Okay. I'll add a column called grade. Okay. I'll add a column called grade. Now I'll just refresh, save it and refresh it. I will not be getting any error because any number of columns can be added. Okay, you could see that grade column got added and I have the rows according to that. Okay, a number of columns can be added, but existing columns, the data, the metadata, that is the column names or the table names should not be changed, and any number of rows can be deleted and any number of columns shouldn't be deleted. As I said, if again student ID if I delete, or student name if I delete, or gender I delete, then I get again an error saying that the column is missing or the column is no more existing. So let's see that as last example. So at that time also we have to go and fix it. So I have gender now. Let me delete this entire gender column and close. So now if I go on the report and do the refresh, you can see that the column gender of the table wasn't found. So we saw here three different kind of issues. The first one was the student ID wasn't not found, or it was saying that it might be the renamed one. Second, the table name, which we changed it. It said that key value did not match any rows of the table. And third is again we changed we deleted the grade gender column, and the gender column has not been seen. It's not been found. So this kind of issues is very common and very important, and we will see in the coming session how do we handle this kind of issues. Clear?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Fine. If there is no questions, then let's wind up for today's session, and let's catch up tomorrow. Okay, and also please practice this one. Try to connect and try to import the data, all those stuff, and like let me know if you, in case if you find any of the issues or if you have any doubts, then we can discuss on the coming classes. Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all.